Imagine you could step inside the minds of Canada's healthcare leaders, glimpse their greatest fears, strongest drivers, and what makes them tick. Welcome to Healthcare Changemakers, a podcast where we talk to those leaders about the joys and challenges of driving change in our complex and demanding healthcare organizations.
Hey listeners, welcome back to Healthcare Changemakers. I'm your host, Ellen Gardner. Our producer, Philip Souza, and I were excited to recently sit down with one of the key people behind the move to virtual healthcare in Canada. Juggy Sihota has held various roles in her 25-year career at TELUS and openly shares her advice that people, especially young people and women, should never underestimate themselves and their power to drive positive outcomes. We spoke with Juggy during the coronavirus lockdown in May, and like most of us, she was pondering how the world has been transformed. Juggy's optimistic that we'll soon get to the other side of this, but in the meantime, we need to take care of each other and ourselves. You'll hear how a reprimand from her mother reminded Juggy of the importance of self-care. So let's get into it.
I want to get started by just asking you that, many of us think of TELUS. We know TELUS as a telecom organization. Can you just talk a little bit about how and why TELUS first got into healthcare?
We made a decision over a decade ago to take a look at some of the challenges that we're seeing at a social level and where the private sector can help the public sector. Healthcare was a natural one. And what we saw was that there are challenges with access to healthcare. And we felt that given that we are in the business of moving information securely around quickly and getting it into the right hands at the right time, that who better than TELUS to help make sure that healthcare information is moving quickly, securely, and getting into the right hands so the right health outcomes can be achieved. And we knew that our infrastructure could help with that public sector challenge. And we felt that it was a social responsibility for our organization to get into this space. And that's exactly what we did.
Juggy, you've been with TELUS in various roles for over 24 years. That's a very impressive career. When you reflect on it, what is it about this work that makes you proud?
I've been here a long time. I've actually grown up in this organization. I've been here for longer than half my life. And I've had a number of different roles throughout that tenure, working with all sorts of emerging technologies. But I think what I'm most inspired by is working with people and understanding how people and teams can work together to achieve magnificent outcomes. And, the work that makes me proud is, again, I think about when I leave this organization at some point, I'll reflect back on my impact. I will. And what I'll hope that impact is that, people enjoyed working with me, enjoyed having me on their team, and enjoyed working for me. And really that's it. So it's so much about the human connection. I think about the particular work part that makes me proud is probably the efforts that are underway right now on the healthcare side. I don't think that there's ever been more meaningful work for me. I think it's very purposeful work. It's very personal to me in order to, help Canadians get better access to healthcare. We've got lots to be proud of in Canada when it comes to our healthcare system, but there's still work to be done. And especially as it relates to access to healthcare. If you need to see your family doctor or see a specialist or get some tests done, usually those things take time. Surgeries as well, those things take time, and I think longer than they should in this great nation. And so there's still work to be done on that front. So spending every day of my time, effort, energy, and focus, and leveraging everything that I've learned over this last quarter of a century and putting that to work now to make healthcare better, I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity.
Hey, Juggy, it's Philip here. I have a quick question for you. I loved what you said there about you just have so much passion in your voice talking about your team and how together you guys are making a huge difference. So now you mentioned, whenever that day comes when you leave. So my question to you is kind of a play on that is whenever that day does come that you leave, or you've finished working and you're retired or whatever, what's one headline you'd love to see in the newspaper or magazine or something really cool, cutting edge about what the team has accomplished?
What an incredible, incredible question, Philip. I think what I would like to see is if my ego would let me say that, okay? What I would love to see, it just seems like such a big thing to say. The headline on a newspaper, who am I? Who are we, right? I think, what I would say though is if you put it in that way, what I would love to see is this is the team that revolutionized access to healthcare in Canada.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's what I would like to see. That's the goal.
You've had a very interesting perspective looking at the healthcare environment and seeing what's happening in Canada. Along comes this pandemic, everything changes, and organizations are moving really fast into virtual. So are you surprised that this is happening now? And do you feel that, yes, that this was expected, that this kind of rapid transformation was something we were bound to see anyway?
The approach that I take with any new opportunity that I'm given career-wise, or even personally, is what are the unmet needs? What are the unmet needs? And what can we do to meet those needs? And, when I look back a couple of years ago, when we started looking at virtual care and virtual healthcare specifically, there were a lot of unmet needs. And the reason why we went to virtual healthcare is because we saw that access to healthcare was a challenge. What do you do after 5 p.m. and you need access to a doctor? What do you do when it's on the weekend and you're sick or your loved ones are sick? Where do you go? And there's an unmet need there. And so what we said was, let's meet that need with technology solutions, with incredible local doctors, and let's put the two together. And that's what we started. And we launched our service, our Babylon by TELUS Health service, last March. And we saw an incredible take to that service by patients throughout Canada. And so when you look at what's happening now, it's an amplification of that unmet need. My mom always would say to me, I'm sure lots of moms and dads have said this to people, is necessity is the mother of invention. And, we're in a situation now where the need is far greater than it ever has been for access to everything, including healthcare. And so what we're seeing now is the need is surpassing a lot of the bureaucracy that was impeding adoption. It's not because, people didn't want to get access to it. It's not because, doctors didn't want an alternate way of providing service and care. A lot of these adoption challenges are marred in bureaucracy, policies, budgets. The way that we used to do things needs to be the way that we continue to do things. And those were, I think, the barriers that were in our way. And then when you get to a crisis situation, a lot of those barriers go away immediately. And they do because they have to. When you look at what's happening now, there's no turning back. People at scale are now seeing the value of this because they have to get access to this, not just because they want to get access to it. And now they're thinking, why would we ever have done it any differently before?
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality that's setting in. I don't think there's any turning back.
What are 3 things that you would say healthcare organizations should consider as they move towards virtual health?
As healthcare organizations are thinking about virtual care, I think they should think about how does it work within what they've got right now and how does it make it better? I think that's first. Second is how can they scale their solutions safely for the patient, for the doctor, for continuity of care. I think they should be looking at it from that perspective. And then thirdly, and this is in no particular order, but thirdly, I would say is, what would you do if you could design something to, address the greatest challenges that you have today? What would you do if you were unshackled? What would you do if you were blue skying the solutions today? What would you do? And why that part for me is really important is I know all the reasons why we can't do something, all the reasons why, it won't work, etc. But I'm always reframing my own teams and people that I work with to say, what is it going to take to do it? Don't tell me all the reasons why we can't. in the current construct, reframe yourself and think about what would it take to actually do it? What would you need in resources? What would you need in policy decisions? What would you need in terms of finances? What would you need in terms of, patient connectivity and feedback from patients? What would you need in order to make this great, as opposed to all the reasons why we can't do what we're talking about doing?
I love that, Juggy, how you mentioned about the reframe, because I think that right now in healthcare, we're in this, exactly what you said, where we see the reframing happening. And I remember I was telling your colleague Jill earlier that in the tech sphere, people thought, virtual care is moving so slow, but because of the pandemic, it's moving really rapidly now. Is there something that the healthcare community can do today to make it the new norm? Because it's technically the norm right now, right?
It is. I think what would be the most important thing that can happen right now in terms of people understanding the value of this method of connecting with patients is use it. Use the service. Encourage the use, and encourage the use. I would say, we've got so many different versions of virtual care happening out there. Everything from a phone call to a text message to a video consultation to, there's so many different versions of it. I would say that the most impactful way of delivering virtual care service is through a video consultation where doctor can see patient can see doctor, and you can interact with one another and to see. I think that seeing the patient is really important. And I've heard that from a lot of doctors. The way patients answer things is important in terms of the tone. But, if you've ever been in a specialist office or in a doctor's office, they're looking at you, they're studying how you're answering what you're answering, and they're just seeing, what your facial expressions are, et cetera. So I think that that's really important. I think using the service is the most important thing that healthcare organizations can do, and encourage the use of the service, and then listen and hear what people are saying about what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and use that feedback to continue to scale it and to make it better.
We know that you're very active in your community, you're active on boards. That's a big part of your professional life. And I'm sure part of it is a personal interest in just contributing to your community. Why is that involvement important to you?
I worry about the world a lot. I come across some people that don't, and it stymies me. I don't understand them. I don't understand why they're like. I just think the core value of mine is we're all in this together, in this life, in this world together, and I think we should want to take care of each other. If we can take care of each other, I think we should try and take care of each other. Not everybody can, right? But if you can, you should. And you can help with your time, you can help with your money, you can help with your voice, you can help with platforms you've got access to. And I just fundamentally believe that, if I'm here in this world, I have to do that. Like, even in my role in healthcare, it's very purpose driven. I benefited from the healthcare system and through people I knew, et cetera, and not everybody can. And I made a commitment to myself to say that, I'm going to spend this next stage of my working life anyway, doing more and helping more. And so as it relates to my community involvement, I care about the community that I live in and that I work in. And I care about my neighbors, and I care about what's happening to our community. And so, the way that I can help is I can contribute, and I can learn so many things in different ways. And so, obviously I have my job, and I can learn on my job. I have my personal life, and I can learn from people that are around me, and I certainly do. But I can be more effective if I can learn from my community. And so, a lot of the things that I do from a board perspective, they're not-for-profit boards, all of them. And I learn from the community in that way. And it helps me add more meaning and purpose to my existence. And that matters to me. And so when I say I worry about the world, I want to make it better. One of the newer boards that I've joined is a racial ethnic equality board for the city of Vancouver. And, one of the reasons why I initially joined that board is because I felt in our city, which is a fantastic city, we've got silos as it relates to different, ethnic groups. And I think, again, we're stronger together. We're stronger if we know each other better, and we're closer to one another. And I saw some polarization happening there, especially with the, our Asian communities. And I want us to be more integrated, and I want us to be closer together. Now with COVID and what's happening on that front, it couldn't be more important. And, my voice at the table will be to help build bridges and to make sure that we are taking care of one another at that level.
I liked your conversation about you're talking about a contribution culture and giving back to community, and I can just hear it in your voice. And did you pick that up from somewhere? Where did you get that motivation to fulfill that kind of that itch, and I don't want to say itch, but to fulfill that need to fill that void?
I think that comes from like my ancestry. Actually, it comes from my parents. It comes from my grandfather in particular, who always instilled the value of connecting with each other and giving back. It comes from my heritage is my parents are from India, and we're a pretty big country there, and there's a great sense of community there too. And I think that's where it comes from, Philip. And I just think it's beautiful. It comes from religion too, to some degree. Like I connect a lot with Sikhism, and my family and ancestry is connected to Sikhism, and there's a really important tenet in that, which is called seva. And seva means, service and giving back and taking care of one another. And I think it's beautiful. So I think it comes from a variety of different places, and it feels good, doesn't it? Doesn't when you think about life and you think about being here and what we're here to do, and what our value of our contribution is doesn't it feel better to know that you're making it better? And look, let me tell you this. Let me be really clear. I have lots of work to do on this front. I go to bed at night thinking about all the things that I didn't do, and thinking about all the things that I needed to do, and all the things that I could have done better. And like, that's a heavy weight sometimes. And, when I'm watching around what's happening around the world, the weight of that can be really heavy sometimes around when the things that aren't necessarily going the right direction. And that's influenced by, my perceptions. It's influenced by which media I'm subscribing to and listening to, etc. But I just think there's so much more that we need to do. And I think it's exciting, though, to have that purpose underscore our existence. I think that, it makes everything that we do mean a little more. And I think that helps me, get through every single day. Like one of my favorite quotes is from Friedrich Nietzsche, where he talks about, he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. And I think of what we're going through right now in particular. We've got lots around the why to live for. And we will get through this together. And if we take care of each other, if we're smart about it, if we're not divisive about it, if we leverage what's the best of us to get through it globally, we will. And we're not going to get it right away, but I think ultimately we will get it right. And we'll be on the other side of this pandemic. And hopefully we'll be a stronger, more unified society afterwards. That's my hope. And that's what I'm working towards. And I know that there's lots of other people, more, stronger, more powerful people than I am, that have that same goal as well, that will potentially have the ability to help us get there even faster. And I'm counting on it.
I love that. And I love how you were so open with what drives you, that candor and vulnerability that I think people are drawn to your vision. And like, even while you were talking, I was like, I wonder if Juggy will ever run for prime minister.
Public service, I honestly think when I was early on in university, I planned to go into the United Nations at that time. I remember my prof was writing for my internship at Vienna and potentially going there. I think public service is something that is noble. I think that, if we get the right people in public service, we'll be a greater society. I think that at some level, I personally do think that public service is in my future at some point. I don't know how and why and what, but let's see. Let's see. I don't know about your vision though, Philip, but certainly from my perspective.
I could just hear it in your voice. I was like, she should run for something. No, really good.
Wanted to ask you, what is an important piece of advice that you have received from a mentor that's really affected your work life and your personal life?
I have two pieces, I think, on that. One is one that I've held so near to me for at least 20 years that was a pretty humbling experience for me at the time. And it was this fellow I work with who said, and I was struggling with something at work, and I was often struggling, right? And someone was doing something that I didn't think was right, and I was calling them out on it, and it wasn't working. And the fellow said to me, Juggy, often there's a difference between being right and being successful. And you're certainly right. And I just paused and I'm like, yeah, I am right. And then I reflected on what he had just said. And I thought, okay, you're telling me to pick my battles. You're telling me to, understand that this is a long game, not a short game, and, let some things go and focus on, relationships, and where we need to get to, instead of just being right. And then I wrestle with that because everything in school teaches you really to be right? You want to get the right answer. You don't want to get the wrong answer. And, the more right you are, the better you are as a student. And, you get accolades, honor rolls, recognition and awards for being the most right. And then you get into work life and it's about, relationships more than anything else. And that's true for life in general, not just work life. And so then I kind of go back to my schooling and I think we were getting it wrong in terms of celebrating people for getting always the right answer and getting that A. I spent most of my life trying to get that A plus. And, can I even get that last thing that I got wrong? Can I get that right? And I think that wasn't helpful. And so for me at the time where I got that advice, which is, sometimes there's a difference between being right and being successful. And certainly in this case, you're right. That's really important learning. And I give that advice and I share that example with a lot of people. And I think it was very humbling. And I was happy to see that at an early part of my career, because if I didn't have that, I probably would have run into even more brick walls along the way. And so the one thing that I make sure that I highlight now for people, especially young people and especially women, is, never underestimate yourself. And don't underestimate how much power you have to drive the positive outcomes that you're trying to drive. And you can change the situation. You can change the circumstances that you've been dealt up. And if you can't, then you can change yourself to go somewhere else where you can be your best self, right?
When you were moving through your own career, Juggy, and you've had such an interesting career path, did you always find the mentors were there when you needed them?
I think mentors are always there when you need them, if you look for them. And again, another really important learning that I've had along my career is that has worked for me, which is tell people what you want to do in your career and why you want to do it. I think, generally speaking, human instinct is that we want to help each other if we can, and we'll do it even more if it's easy. Okay, that's speaking a little bit to the human dynamic, I think. And if you're clear with people what you want to do and why you want to do it, and people can help you, they'll want to help you. And I think mentors emerge along that journey. And I always also feel that you'll always find what you're looking for. And so if you're looking for mentors and you're looking for advice and you're looking for help, you'll find it. And for me, in my career and in my life, yeah, they're everywhere. And as I mentioned, they're, again, I can think of this one person that's worked for me for a long time. He's one of my most important mentors. And, he offers me honest and transparent advice. I give him a really safe environment to do it. And I take his advice and, not all of it, but I take his advice and I think it makes me a better leader. It makes me a better person.
How do you get your team members to that next level of leadership?
It's helping them see that there's a path for them to be successful, leveraging the support that you're going to give them.
Okay.
And making them feel that, and really making them feel and demonstrating that you are going to champion their success and you are going to set up the parameters so that they can be successful, and walking them through it is getting them ready for the next level. Excellent. And I can tell you, as a leader, when I'm put in a position where I've got the authority to make the decisions that I think that are right for our team and for our people, you make them quickly. You do them. Don't let yourself get talked out of it by other people that might have ulterior motives. When you're in a position of authority, you make it happen. If you think someone on your team needs to be promoted and you have the authority to do that, you should do that. If you think that your team member on your team is hit a wall working underneath you and they'll be better working for somebody else and it'll be better for their growth, let them go and let them grow and help them do that. So I think you commented on lifting people up. I think, helping people see their strengths is a great spot to start a conversation with people. And as a leader, amplifying those strengths and helping them understand, where they're strong, there's always some things that people are strong at, right? Is a good place to have that conversation around, where you need to develop them to take them to the next level and putting them into a position of safety, psychological safety, so that you can help them with the development side of things that need to happen to get them to the next level. I think that the leaders that have probably got the best out of me are the ones where I knew they cared about me. And they cared about my success and they cared about my development. I gave those leaders everything I've had. And so what I don't know is, can you create that, or is it just there in people, whether or not they have a caring nature? I don't know. I think now we're in a time and place where the leaders, I think, that are doing the most for society are the ones that are matching their intellect with their compassion. I think those are the ones that are doing the most for society right now.
Leaders are going to have a lot to struggle with as they, manage this crisis and manage their teams just coming out of it and just getting back on track again. Is that going to be your philosophy as you help your team and help other leaders as well?
Absolutely. What I tell my team is, look, there's going to be days where you're going to feel like I just need a break. I have to, stop doing this for a few minutes. I've got to just go and focus on, X, Y, or Z in my personal life. And I need you to go and do that. I need you to, I'm not going to know when that time is for you, but you will. And so I need you to know that I know that you can't be at 100% right now. We're all still getting our bearings around this, and it'll get better and we'll start to normalize. But high productivity is an unrealistic expectation during a time where we're going through a public pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think that realization is really important, and not just for me supporting my teams, Ellen, but for me even looking at myself. One funny little aside, if I could just share with you, is, we don't see each other anymore, right? I know everybody talks about video and Zoom and, this, that, and the other, but we're not seeing each other really as much anymore. And for the first probably 8 weeks of this pandemic, I was probably like a lot of other people, but I was, taking my shower really late at day, in my pajamas for most of the day, working around the clock, hardly eating, not doing the things that I think that I should have done properly. At one point I was quarantined with my parents, actually, at the beginning of this thing. And, they were witnessing me in action at work. And, my mom would she wrote this note on a piece of paper, and she wrote this note, and she was really angry with me. And she was like, "You are not taking care of yourself. You're not letting us take care of you either." And she wrote, "I'm really angry with you because you're not taking care of yourself." And she goes, "Every day I watch the Prime Minister and I watch the premiers, and they've had their breakfast and they've had their lunch and they look, they're fully dressed. And, why do you think that you can't do it? You should be able to do it too." I took a picture of this note, and I'll have it for the rest of my life, right? I've shared it with my people, and she wasn't being funny, Ellen. She was really mad. And then I thought to myself, I'm letting my mom down. And my mom, you do not want to let your mom down, right? She's the most motivational person in my life. And I'm looking at this note and I'm like, wow, I'm really not taking care of myself. And so, it was a bit of a shakeup for me. But so for weeks and weeks, when other people were on video, I was never going on video. I was always that little black box with my name on it, right? And so one night, my husband and I went out for a walk, and I took a picture of us both on our walk amongst some beautiful trees. This is after I left my parents, and I was now back with my husband in our home. And I took a picture on Instagram, and I started to get some messages. Some of my team members follow me on Instagram. I started to get some messages, which is like, "It's so good to see you, Juggy. Good to see you going for a walk. Good to see you smiling. Good to see your face." And I thought, wow, like I didn't understand the impact of me never being on a video screen beforehand for obvious reasons, but I didn't understand how it was impacting my team. And they needed to see me. They needed to see my face. They needed to see that, you know, they don't just want to hear my voice. They needed to see my face. And so after that, I decided we are going to do more video calls. I'm going to take a shower, put on my clothes, and be on video. And I'm going to take Instagram posts where they can see me and know that I'm okay. Because I think it's important for them to see that I'm okay so that they also can be okay.
Okay, so we've reached that part of the podcast, Juggy. We are going into the lightning round. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and I want your top of mind answers. First thing you do in the morning.
I think about the day ahead, and I already know what the day is going to look like, generally speaking. And I think about what am I going to do to make it better.
What's the last thing you do before going to bed?
You know, I spend alone time reflecting on what I did during the day, and I think about what's going to happen tomorrow.
What's one book on your nightstand?
I have a stack of books, and I call it my stack of shame because I haven't finished reading them all. But the one book on my nightstand that's really meaningful for me is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. That's really important. It's probably the shortest, most impactful book I've ever read in my life. What's
your go-to mobile app?
It's still Twitter. It's becoming it's a very divisive place, but it's still Twitter. And I think that there's lots that can still be learned and shared through that medium.
And what's one problem you'd solve if you were going to launch a digital health initiative tomorrow?
It's the same problem I'm trying to solve right now. Access to healthcare for everyone, whenever they need it, wherever they are. And not just for us humans, but also for pets. There's no reason why we can't get access to healthcare using our technology to help our beloved pets. And I think pets right now are playing an even more important role along those mental health lines that we talked about around keeping people happy as they go through this in social isolation.
Thank you so much, Juggy. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. You have a wonderful outlook on life and just everything you talked about around your philosophy and getting through this difficult time. It's really inspiring for all of us.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I loved talking to you guys last time when we chatted. I thought it was so much fun. And today too, I hope that you got what is going to help for your listeners, and keep going. I think that what you're doing is really important, and we need to be connected to each other, and we need to hear from each other. We need to see each other probably more than we ever have. And I love the fact that you guys are resurrecting all of this right now.
Thank you for listening. You can hear more of our interview on our website, HIROC.com. Follow us on Twitter at HIROC Group or email us at communications@HIROC.com. Healthcare Changemakers is recorded by Ellen Gardner and Philip de Souza and produced by Podfly Productions for HIROC.com. Please rate us on iTunes.